Hey, it's DJ. Before we get to the show, let me share something with you. Summer is here, folks, and most therapists are not ready for it. The caseload lightens, the anxiety kicks in, and suddenly you're scrambling for a plan that you should have had in April. Listen, I get it, been there and done that. Beat the Summer Slowdown is my new tool that gives you that plan. You get mindset work, visibility strategy, and 6 income generating pivots organized by how much time and effort they actually take. This is not a pep talk. It's a working document you will come back to all summer long. Get it now at privatepaypractitioners.com for just $27. It's an instant download, folks. You gotta grab it. All right, let's head to the show. Good evening, good afternoon. It is DJ Burr, and I am back with the Private Pay Practitioners Premium Podcast. And y'all, I have leveled up. I have 2 guests tonight. Oh my goodness. Y'all know how I feel when I have extra guests come in. I don't know how to act. But tonight I am going to try to do my best because this is so exciting. I have Amber Duggar tonight. She is the founder of Profit for Keeps. It's a system that combines personal finances and business cash flow strategies using Profit First, and you need a budget. I remember YNAB like forever ago, and it was one of those systems that I couldn't figure out. Because I feel like a lot of them are hard for me to figure out, but we'll talk about it. All right. And also, she has brought Maren Learndals, and I just figured
You did a
out
good job.
tonight how to say
You
it
got it.
properly. Thank you, Maren. Yay. Yay! And Maren is a licensed clinical social worker, and some of y'all may know her. She was here before, so we're glad that she's back. And Maren is a Profit for Keeps certified coach, and you guys work together, which is fabulous. And so I definitely want to know about what y'all are doing and how you are helping private pay therapists create sustainable practices, because that's what I do all day long. So thank you guys for being here. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself. Who would like to go?
I'll start, I guess. Hi, everybody. My name is Amber, like DJ was saying, and I'm just so grateful to be here. I have been in this business for about 10 years, and we've helped thousands of people with their cash flow. And I think the big thing to take away from this conversation is that this is going to excite you, I believe, about money for the first time. This is something that really, I believe, fills in the gaps of the areas where you may have felt frustrated or anxious or confused before, because we really do address the things that matter, such as what do you actually want to do with the money that comes into your business after you pay all your expenses. And my big thing was when I was about to leave corporate, I wanted so much to spend more time with my grandmother, my Nana, in New Mexico. And so it was about building a business that allowed me to do that and have that location independence and that financial freedom. So we all have something, and I call that profit for joy. And so I'm looking forward to having a really beautiful, deep conversation around that.
Yeah,
So
awesome.
I'll hand it over to
Yes, my
Maren.
name's Maren. I have been on here
Yes.
before, so thanks for having me back, DJ. I always love coming on your podcast, and
Yes.
I am a therapist. I do have a private pay practice. Right now, I'd say about part-time, maybe a little more by intention. And because I also do coaching and a lot of other things. It depends on the day. So when somebody asks me, what do you do? I say, what day? Give me a day and I'll tell you what I do. But I am so passionate about therapists and having a private pay practice around just to have freedom. And the money piece just really comes into it. And that's one of the areas that I have seen really get in the way of success.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I have been doing a lot of workshops and like one-on-one coaching, and I try to talk to
Mm-hmm.
people about like, what's your money story? And what I'm finding, and I don't know if I don't think it's just therapists. I think it's probably across the board. We have money trauma. Like our families have money trauma. like mine is deep, right? And I've like been digging myself out of like someone else's trauma stuff for my whole adult life and still trying to figure it out. And so talking about this stuff is crucial, I think. Right. If you don't talk about it, I think it could just
It's
like
really
collapse
stigmatized
you
as
and
well
your
still. I
business.
say it's probably the number one thing out there that is not talked about.
Well, I think with your
Yeah.
programs, like you can't escape
Yes.
the numbers. You have to use the numbers, right? Yeah, that's what I learned in my money
Mhm.
recovery program. It's like you got to know the numbers. In fact, they're like, "Hey, we would love to help you, and we're so glad that you're here. Start tracking your numbers for
What did
90
you do
days,
to
and
me?
then let's chat." What?
You're kidding me, dog.
What did you say? I gotta track them?
You know what I heard once? That someone would rather dig a chicken out of the frozen ground in the dead of winter than look at their money or look at their numbers. And I had another person who was a 3-time cancer survivor, and she said, "I would rather face cancer again than look at my numbers." So
No.
this is truly, I think, something that, you know, I just can't thank you enough, DJ, for having these conversations because the taboo thing is real. I think it's starting to shift now, but I look forward to the day when it's just something that is regularly talked about because it's a neutral resource. It's here to help us experience the things that we really desire to experience. And it's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just a thing, just like firewood. We don't get all upset about firewood.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
hope not.
I hope not anyway. Maybe we did centuries ago.
You know? But listen, like, we wouldn't be here if I hadn't got into recovery to look at my money. We just wouldn't, because private pay practitioners wouldn't have existed. I never knew that it was possible to leave the insurance industry. And so once I got a look at the money and they said to me, "Hey, you've been tracking your numbers and you're looking at your money, the insurance company is
Mhm.
bankrupting you." So I had to make a change. So, Amber, tell us about Profit for Keeps because I'm assuming that it means like you want to help us keep our money, somewhat the profit, right? But I'm sure there's a lot more to it.
Absolutely. Well, when I first left corporate, I actually started out as a health coach. So I'd gone through a full health coaching training and I moved to Bali, Indonesia. And while I was there, I just had a lot of people asking me about my money system. And so I started doing different conversations with people. And I honestly never wanted to touch money again with a 10-foot pole. I have a degree in finance. I was in corporate finance. I was in lots of different areas of finance. And I just was done because I just found it to be so off putting because of the ego, because of the ridiculous complexity that they added to the subject just to make people scared to look at it. And I just found it to be very frustrating. But once I started talking with people, I realized that there was just so much more there. There was really this gap that we really had in terms of how much do we pay ourselves? How much do we put aside for taxes? How do we know when we're making enough money? And how do we know when we can actually pay ourselves? And when can we actually hire a new person, et cetera? So this was back in 2015. And while I was just navigating all of that, my business coach actually told me about the book Profit First. So I read up to chapter 3 and I knew at that point, I said, okay, this is everything that I'm doing. The only missing piece was the profit piece. So I joined Profit First Professionals. And what I found was that Profit First was really great for an established business with at least 3 years of bookkeeping records and having all of that set up. But for the solopreneur, the smaller practice, like the person who maybe just has that themselves and they're looking to build a life for themselves with their business, it's missing in that place because the percentages just didn't make sense. And so I thought, well, what if we reverse engineer our revenue goal? Because that's what I'm doing for my own business. And that's how it really started to come about was just doing a lot of different iterations of cash flow management for both personal and business, and then seeing that these were all the missing pieces I was seeing. Because I was in a group that suggested, okay, we'll charge $200 a month for a client. And then I had a business coach telling me to aim for $5,000 a month. Well, if I had taken those two pieces of advice, I would have been in $30,000 in debt, and I would have been absolutely burned out by the end of the year because I really needed to be making $8,000 a month. And I really didn't want more than 12 clients a month to be working with multiple times a month. So just that alone was telling me, okay, there's some really big gaps here. And that's how it really started. And then it really gained traction as we were just starting to help a lot of the online business owners over the last 10 years that have entered the market, that were looking for the same kind of information that I had been searching for when I started my coaching business.
Oh, and does that mean is that how you got connected with therapists?
So I have worked with many therapists over the years, because I've worked with a lot of different business owners that were service based. And so Maren, I think, can share a little more about how she came to find Profit for Keeps. And then she introduced me to a lot of these incredible people like you that are in the therapist industry. Also, my best friend is a therapist. So I've definitely had these conversations
Yes,
before with
yeah.
her.
Yeah, even
Yeah,
better.
so it's
Nice.
actually
Yeah, Maren, I would love
so
to hear
funny
about
how
it.
it happened. So when I started my practice, I knew I wanted to be private pay. I did not want somebody else to tell me how to show up with my clients. I wanted it to be for them. And I I worked in a doctor's office, and our copays were astronomical. And I had multiple people come to me and say, "I can't afford $400 or $500 to come see you." And because it's a big healthcare system, and that's a whole different ballgame. And so I knew from the get-go I wanted to be private pay. I did take Medicare for a while because I had a couple clients that just begged and begged and begged, and there just wasn't anybody around. And then, when some things shifted, I stepped away from that. But when I went from part-time to full-time private practice, I had no idea how to pay myself. I was so overwhelmed. I put together, I can't tell you how many spreadsheets. I researched everything. And actually, one of my therapy clients told me about YNAB, you need a budget. And I went through YNAB coaching. It was great, but it only hit on the personal side. We did a little bit with the business, but it was really mostly the personal side. Then I found Profit First, and I loved Profit First, but it only touched on the business side. So there was this missing piece. So I went on, my ADHD went on a hyper focus, and I was determined to figure this out. And somehow I came across Amber. It was a video with a therapist sometime early in the pandemic. And I saw YNAB and Profit First together, and I thought, oh my gosh, yes, this is it. I found it. Yeah, and I actually remember getting an email because
Combo.
I had loosely followed her, and I was on her email list when she started the coaching certification. And I remember thinking, "Come on, you don't have the time for this. You cannot do anything else." And so at that point, I didn't. And then a couple years later, I was doing some business coaching around systems in my ADHD, and Patrick had asked me, he goes, "So what do you want to focus on today?" And somehow alternate streams of income came out of my mouth. I don't know where it came from. And we landed on coaching. And he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I really want to do something with money." And at that point, it was, okay, do I start my own from scratch, really build it up, or do I find something that's already there? And that's what I did. So at that point, I reached out to Amber, and it honestly was perfect because even thinking back on it, I think I wouldn't be able to build this while I have a therapy practice, seeing clients, trying to build a business and all the things. So it truly was just perfect timing. Yeah.
I love how timing it like comes together sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. It
wow,
truly
so much
was.
synergy
It
was
truly
happening.
was.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So these two systems have come together to kind of build like this really robust system, right? Like, can you walk us through like what is it like to sit down with a let's see, a therapist come in, I come in. What do we how do you figure it out? Like, what helps?
So how about I start and then you can
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then we can kind of work together to answer this because this I think it'll be fun because with the therapist side, I think you'll have some really great additions to what I'm sharing. So I think that the very first thing that's the most important is to identify your profit for joy. So when someone comes in, the very first thing I like to ask is let's just imagine for a moment that all your debt is paid off, that you have at least 6 months of savings in the bank for both personal and business expenses. You have more money coming in than you actually need to pay your current expenses. What is it that you want to do with the extra money that's coming into your business? Where do you want it to go towards? Is there an experience or a thing that you've been wanting to do? Or is there a cause that you're wanting to funnel it to? And it can be multiple things, but that is the first thing. And I'm curious, DJ, because would you be open to sharing what yours would be? What your
Let's
profit?
get into it.
Okay.
First and foremost, like, I want to have enough monies to make sure that my kid is taken care of, right? So, and what I mean by that, like the day to day, like we need additional help, for his care. And it allows us to take a break and him to go have fun for a couple hours, right? That is like the biggest thing that I think funnel money towards.
Mhm.
And it always feels like I don't have enough to do it. So that would be the thing. But also, like, I would love to take a huge trip. And like, we are going to take one next year, but I had to plan like a whole like year plus to do it. And I was like, you know what? We just got to do it. And I found a system that allows us to do it with support. But of course, that requires more monies, right? So we can have caregivers along with us on the trip. And so I would love to be able to do that like every other year,
Mm.
right? And not just be like out here in the country where I live, looking at these four walls. Um, because things are so expensive. And I'm grateful that, we have like insurance for him and we're not having to come out a huge amount of money for his medical care. But it would be nice to do other things. So I would
I
say that's what
remember
I
whenever
would
in my
need
Facebook
and
group,
want.
I had asked, I guess it was the last profit distribution day about what everybody was doing. And when I saw you post about the cruise, I was so excited because I remember you sharing that with me. And I said, yes, it's happening. I was so excited when I saw that.
Didn't know it was gonna happen, but the monies are being
I was
saved
so excited
for
when I
it. The
saw
monies
that.
are being saved for it. Yay.
That's
Yes,
amazing.
yes.
I love what you just shared because there's so many ways that you can feel into that experience. And there's so many ways for you to just start to see that starting to happen for your family. And the reason that we ask this at the very beginning is because I don't know a single person who wants to come into this just because they love setting up spreadsheets or setting up systems or setting up software. I don't know anybody. I mean, maybe a couple, but but those are the tools or the what I call the wizardry of allowing you to experience that. And it's a lot of times a lot more difficult in perception than it is in reality because it's unfamiliar to us. So anything unfamiliar is uncomfortable. And so we really love to set the stage for what is it that you're doing this for? Because when you start to go into that area of uncomfortable and also figuring things out, and entrepreneurship in general is a roller coaster of emotions. So this can help ground us. And just be able to feel back into that. And I believe very strongly in balancing the masculine and feminine sides of money. So
Right.
this also allows you to start right now, even tonight, DJ, is before you go to bed. You can just start to close your eyes and imagine your son just having the time of his life while you and your husband are enjoying just some nice time together. Like this is something that you can actually imagine right now. And the nervous system does not know the difference between imagination and reality. So it starts to align things in our life that allows this to be much smoother of a transition just by really being intentional.
Mm, I love it. I love it. And you know what comes to mind? I'll just tell you the first thing comes to mind. Like, how do I and we stay out of our
That's a
own
big
way?
one. I see that a lot.
Yes.
The therapists have a really hard time with this,
Yeah.
but oh my god, yes.
Ooh, all the
It's
time.
it's wow.
I see it with my coaching
Do you know
clients
what
too.
I
It's
do
like,
for a
would
living?
you sit down?
They have a really hard time with this, but, I mean, there's so many reasons, and I feel I am really fortunate to have a private pay practice, so I can be more intentional about it, but it still is really tough for us even when we are in that place, you know, because so many of us are, "Well, it's
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
possible," "How am I
Yeah.
ever gonna be able to do something like that?"
I
Yeah,
learned in recovery, you gotta
yeah,
fake it till
and
you
that's
make
part of it
it.
is dreaming. Dream big, let's figure out how to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
It is interesting because I grew up with a lot of scientists as parents because I grew up in Los Alamos, New Mexico. So it was very pragmatic. We had the Britannica, right next to our dining room table. We always looked everything up. So I can assure you that when I first started my business and I joined a mastermind, it was how to make 5K months consistently as a health coach. And I remember the first full month of the 6 month was all about Think and Grow Rich by, being able to write out your intentions and all that. And she's talking about Kate Spade's stationery. And I'm telling you, I had no time for it. I was so annoyed. I was like, this is not what I need. I need to know how to make the 5K, actually 8K in my mind, not 5K.
Yeah.
And now, and actually yesterday, because I am here to win it. I am here to be in business. I do not want to be doing this Napoleon Hill thing. I was not into it at all. And I didn't care about Kate Spade's stationery. So it was not a very good example. That said, what I have noticed over the years, and it's just too glaringly obvious for me not to start talking about it a lot more, is I have seen so many clients really bring in opportunities that they never even thought possible by once clearly coming up with a very clear plan. So this really feeds into the next part. So once you clearly state what your profit for joy is, then it's about let's just get everything out there. So it can be a messy process, kind of like, you know, decluttering your closet. Like you're just getting everything down. So you're just listing everything you can think of for personal expenses. And you're thinking of everything that you can think of for business expenses. And you just list them out on this very easy and beautifully colorful spreadsheet that we have. And, you might have a beverage or something with you too, just because you want to make this like a very relaxing experience. I always recommend a candle, maybe getting really cozy, having really comfortable clothes on, some good music. Like this can be a beautiful experience. This does not have to be you sitting with your work clothes on, uncomfortable, like this is supposed to be financial self-care. And the idea is that when you list everything out and then when we go through it with you, it's coming up with all those things that maybe you hadn't thought of as an actual expense because it wasn't a monthly expense, or it wasn't a bill. So I always say this because I, to this day, really don't care about tires. Maren's heard this story so many times now, but I don't care about tires. And for the longest time, I've used YNAB for years, like 2 decades. And it was just about 4 years ago that I finally put tires on my list because I do need them. Like everybody else, I do need tires every once in a while. And so by putting, let's say that I need tires every 3 years, and let's say that tires are $1,000, then you're just taking 1,000 dividing by 36 months. And that is a bill that you're going to just put aside money and you're not even going to think about it. And then it will accumulate. And then when you need tires, it's not even a question. You just buy them. And this is the same for any other true expense. That's what they're called. So like vet visits, or even what you were mentioning before, your vacation and all the things that go into that, you can actually put it in as a true expense and put money towards it every month. And this is a beautiful thing. So what happens is when you have this really clear set of expenses and you really see what it requires to live the life that you really desire, that's when something switches. Because up until now, we have been going for, most of us have been going for generic revenue goals. But when we go for a generic revenue goal, we don't have any connection to it emotionally. And we don't even really know if it's the right number, right? But when we go through the numbers and we actually reverse engineer the goal to see this is what I want to be aiming for, and that covers all these things that I've listed, there's something that switches, and it's like we start to call in opportunities that align with that particular revenue goal. And I saw this one, it was a school psychologist that I worked with. And she had an Amex that she called the naughty Amex. And I said, well, why are we calling it the naughty Amex? And she said, well, because my husband lost his job about 12 months ago, and we've just put everything on there, like kids' school fees and groceries, and so it's just really stressing me out. And I said, well, I just want you to take a moment and just imagine how your life over the last 12 months would have been had you not had that Amex. Because her kids never knew. They never knew there was any issue. They were able to do all their things at school. They could go and they could have food on the table. And it was such a change in perspective for her because she was able to really see it with so much gratitude. Like, thank God I had this Amex. So we
Yeah.
switched the name of it, and she needed something like $44,000 to totally cover, I think, the balance and also getting her 2 first months or something like that. But it was to the penny. We had a number. A month later, we get on the call and she says, Amber, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? My school just sent me an email. They have been underpaying me
Oh my
for
gosh.
6 years. And she got the exact amount. I'm not kidding you.
Goodness. I believe it.
And that's just one of many stories that I have. So it's phenomenal what happens when you really put your faith in yourself and I actually can do this. And I do believe every single person that's listening to this podcast, that is maybe even hearing about it later, you are good with money. You are very good with money. You just maybe haven't found a system that works for you yet, but it's out there. It's out there and it's possible because money, we've been able to do this for years and years and years. Like, I'm just going to take my 2 beautiful crystals right here that are just happen to be in front of me. Like, we used to use this as money. This is very easy. Hand it over, you get something back. It was very simple, right? We've created this ridiculous complexity around
Yeah,
it.
That's true. That's true. I had to get out of debt. Debt was like, I think, because I'm sitting with people who are in like a considerable amount of debt, and it pains my heart because um, I remember it, right? I remember when the insurance
Oh,
companies would
yeah.
snatch back funds, and then I had to get a loan to pay this, that, and the other thing, right? Or I didn't pay myself while I
Mm.
had to make sure that my employees got paid. Like, I remember that. And I also remember the day that I retired all my debts. So, which was great. Like, the
That's
only debt I have
amazing.
now is like my house, and the lawnmower.
Do you get to ride
Thank
around on the
goodness.
lawnmower?
I listen, I have not stepped foot on that thing. That is my husband's thing.
I'm not allowed to touch the yard.
And I am not interested. I had so much trauma as a kid on lawnmowers. I'm like, you know what? I did my EMDR on that shit, and I still don't want to deal with it.
But I mean, it's so true. There's so much fear put into this. I mean, that's what I mean, clawbacks. I mean, I
Yeah,
can't tell you how many people have said, "No, I can't do that because what if I get a clawback?" Or "I have to have this perfect because what if I get a clawback?"
Mm.
right. Exactly. I remember like 2 years ago, money showed up in my bank account. I
We don't
was
wanna
like,
touch it.
where does this come from? I'm investigating. Yeah, I'm investigating. And it was a client's payment from their insurance. No, it ain't. How you get my
Yep.
bank account information?
Wow.
No. And I think they held on to my bank account information from when I had
Forever.
a contract
I
with
send it
them.
right back.
Y'all
I
better
write on the
come
check
get this
and
money.
says, "Nope."
Absolutely. Oh, I was on the phone. You got to take this money back. You better process it the correct way because I'm not writing a check. I don't even have checkbook. Like, I'm not writing a check and sending it to the client. I'm not doing any of that. I call that client up. It took a minute to figure out who it was because there was no name on a deposit, right? I didn't get an EOB. So I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I'm literally going through all of my clients,
"Who
like,
is it? I'm
who
coming after
filed
you."
this, right? I called the client. Yeah, exactly. I called the client. I said, "I have your money and I don't want it because you already paid me. You already paid me. You need to get on the phone right now and call your insurance company and tell them they take that money back because I'm not dealing with this. I do not have a contract with them. I am not talking to them. You need to call them." And the client, they had to take
Mhm.
ownership of their side, right? That was their money. And it got squashed. And I sent a letter to the insurance company. You better tear up and delete and whatever else that my routing number and bank account information is on
No,
because this is not okay. That felt like a violation. That brought
that
me
is
all the way back to the beginning. So I don't mess with it. Right. So I
mhm.
get my money before the client sits down.
Well, kudos to you. That is
Yeah.
such a good method. That has been the way that I've done my own business for the last 10 years, and it completely eliminates accounts receivable.
Yeah.
It just completely eliminates it. I mean,
Right. Yes. So we're talking about systems and such. So you said that this would take less than 10 minutes a day. What are you doing in those
Yeah.
10 minutes?
Yeah, so I
Maren,
am
do you wanna
opening up my
answer?
YNAB. I'm seeing what hit my bank account. I'm putting it where it needs to go. It all has its home. And then I'm running everything through our beautiful calculator
Mhm.
that tells me exactly what to pay myself without questions, exactly what to put aside for taxes, exactly what to put for my business expenses, and exactly what to put in my profit account. No questions. I don't have to sit down and overthink it. It tells me what it needs to do. That's a home. It's so beautiful. And then I just put it in YNAB where it needs to go.
So, okay, go Amber, you're gonna say
Yeah,
something?
so that is the daily thing, and then also it's about looking at, I like to think of it as looking and being more proactive than reactive in the business. So part of it is also if you have a revenue goal, then you also want to have a
Mhm.
forecast that you maintain. So you can take a look once a week, maybe, and see, or even once a month, beginning of the month, and see, okay, right now, this is what I'm forecasting to bring in. Comparing that to the revenue goal, do I have any gaps? Is there anything that I need to do over the next few months to bring in additional income? Or because what happens is we have definitely ups and downs, right, with income, but we want to be able to pay ourselves consistently. So part of the system is actually creating that consistency when you have ups and downs. And so it's just this beautiful, you know, mix of looking at the most important things, such as what's your revenue goal? and then maintaining everything in YNAB, which is really an envelope software for those that haven't heard of this. It's essentially like what our grandmothers did when we were using cash all the time. And so it's really just sorting our money and putting it aside for very specific purposes. And then when life happens, you can move things around from the envelopes, but at least you know exactly where your money's sitting, what it's there for, how much is available for taxes, et cetera, et cetera. And I know that this is a little bit off topic, but I want to mention this one thing just because DJ, what you mentioned about bank accounts, it just prompted a memory that I always recommend when you are doing your tax payments, that you actually set up a separate account that you only use for those tax payments and also to receive your refund from the IRS or from the state, because they will remember that account number. And if they decide, oh, you owe us money, even if you don't, like they make mistakes all the time, they will take money out of the account if it's there. So I always recommend not recommend as in a tax professional, because we aren't doing that, but as a person, to recommend that you put your money in that account to pay the taxes and then not keep more than
Mine
like
is a
10 or
penny.
whatever the minimum
I keep a
balance
penny
is
in
for
that.
that. So I just wanted to mention it because I think that's a really
Our
important
bank requires a
tip.
penny, so that's the only thing that is there unless I'm paying taxes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I do that.
Good.
Yeah, I absolutely do that. So I'll say this. So I tried the YNAB. Okay. I could not wrap my head around these virtual envelopes. Now, the physical envelope I could do. The virtual envelope, for some reason, my brain is not doing it. And so I do Profit First, and I got all these
It
blank
was
bank
so
accounts.
overwhelming for me when I had all these bank accounts. I thought, I don't know what to do. Where do I go? What is here? I can't remember what's here.
I got all these bank accounts for different things. The bank account is the envelope, right? But I see the number. So is your system clear for someone with my brain?
It is. It's one of those things though that I always say, if it's working for you, that's what
Mhm.
matters. That's really what matters.
Okay.
So if you feel completely satisfied with what you're doing, then keep doing it. You know, I mean, so Profit First has a phrase. They say, when in doubt, open an account. And that is very helpful for those that want to do it that way. And the reason that I like YNAB is, for me personally, it just gives me a lot of nervous system regulation by knowing and seeing everything in one place. And my bookkeeper doesn't fire me because there are bookkeepers out there that are totally Profit First, certified, and they have ways to do it. But most bookkeepers are going, you have how many accounts? And then they charge you by the accounts. So it's nice. And also, I lived in Bali, and many of my clients also like to live in other remote locations. So it can be difficult to get a lot of bank accounts when you're out of the country or when you're
Mhm.
in other countries in general. Um, but obviously, Profit First is an amazing system, and it works really well for those that have set it up and it works for them. I just find that YNAB gives you a lot more clarity on those true expenses without
And I
having
also
100 bank
find
accounts.
that with YNAB, I can look ahead and know that I have money for this thing. So whenever I have, let's just say all
Yeah.
my owner pay is in this one bank account, I don't know what is actually covered. So I just know I have money there. So I'm just, oh, okay, it's good. I've got money there. So I'm just going to put it on my card. I'm good. But with YNAB, I can see down to the penny. I know how many months ahead I am, where I am with everything, what needs to happen. So this is I think you've heard this, but we got our house about 2.5 years ago, and we have this amazing refrigerator, but I think it's from 2011. So we put two Band-Aids on it this year, and we did not want to have to get a new refrigerator. So after this last Band-Aid, we said, okay, if it happens again, we're getting a new fridge. Well, guess what? It happened. And so if I would have just had that bank account, I
Mm,
would have said, okay, well, I guess I have to put on the credit card, and I would have been really overwhelmed. But with Profit for Keys, I knew that I had money for that because it was so intentional. I could very clearly see where it was at, and I didn't have to go in debt over it. And it was great. And then I just go back and rebuild that up. Yeah.
okay. All right. Makes sense.
The other thing that prompted something for me is that YNAB is specifically created to help you get out of the paycheck to paycheck cycle and pay down debt and actually create a buffer. So they have so many things built into it. And now I don't know when you were using it, DJ, but it now connects to bank accounts. So it's a lot easier than it was before 2016. Um, and
Okay.
I happened to have dinner with the founder of YNAB and Mike McAllowitz. I manifested that because I wanted them to meet. And so I reached out to Jesse Meekum, and Mike and I were doing a different event in Manhattan, and Jesse was there for his book launch. So we got together, and it was so much fun. But it was fun to see Jesse talk about why he didn't have the bank accounts connected because he believed so strongly that you need to have everything done manually so that you know it's there and you know that it's being moved. But he realized that that was really turning off so many people that could really benefit from the program. And so he switched it. And I think that it
Hmm.
has really opened up a lot of people being able to finally use it because it pulls in and it allows you to kind of match things instead of have to put every single thing in, and there's a fresh start. It's not meant to be a bookkeeping system, so you don't need to worry about having everything right before. Like if you just get behind in it, you just do a fresh start. It's not a big deal. It pulls in your balances, but it really does help with debt reduction, and it helps you also with just being able to see, like Maren was saying, like it gives you so much peace of mind seeing that you have money in future months and the ability to say, oh, yeah, I can cover my mortgage this many times and I can do this and you can move things around. So it just gives you so much more
It does.
flexibility, I
And I
would
think the
say,
other
in one
piece
place.
is with so I mean, myself, I have ADHD and neurodivergent individuals, it needs to have a home. We freeze, we get overwhelmed. And so I can go and see, oh, okay, I've got money in my mortgage, or I really want to go out to dinner. I don't have it, but I was planning on going to this trip, but I'm not going to go anymore. So I can move it here. So it really takes a lot of the overwhelm and makes it much more simpler than we actually thought it would be, which is so helpful with somebody that has ADHD or autism.
Mm, mm. I can see how this is like absolutely
Yeah.
can, be beneficial for a lots of folks. Like you said, like, you know, if a system is working, then let it work. But if it's not, maybe get some fresh eyes on it and see, like, what might be different. So if a client, let's say someone says, like, let's say me, I was to ring you up and say, hey, I want to sit down. I have all these systems and such. What does that timeline look like? Is it an intensive? Is it a weekly? Is it a every
Yeah, it
other
really
week? What does that
depends.
look like?
So if we're working one on one together, so we start with a blueprint because that's the foundation for everything. Because if we don't have that and we don't know our numbers, we can't do a system. We've got to have the numbers to know that. And so with that, once we
Numbers.
have that, we can implement it.
Well, let's
Yes.
explain what a
I don't think we
blueprint
actually
is real
named
quick.
it. We were talking about it, but I don't think we actually named it. Yeah.
Right, that's true. So it's just getting the revenue goal, getting all the numbers down, the personal and the business, and also getting clear profit first percentages for your business based on your specific expenses. And
Mm,
then also it allows you to figure out your forecast and if your business model is aligned with your revenue goal? And if not, what changes need to happen in the business, such as, rates or tiered pricing, what that looks like. If you do intensives, if you do some outside consulting or other things like that, you can look at that and see, how can I make that happen without burning myself out? So you also look at your time and see, how much time do you really want to be in the office or in the chair? How often, how many clients do you want to see a week? Do you have therapists that work with you or associates that work with you? Do you want, what does that percentage look like? Is that actually working for your business? So that's the blueprint piece, and it's a substantial piece because it gives you awareness before you even go into the systems, so you can start facilitating changes and shifts to get you moving in the direction of a sustainable, profitable business that gives you some time back too.
Yeah. And one of the things I always look at in
Okay.
this
All
process
right.
is, what is your capacity? Not what are we supposed to be seeing, or, how many clients is my friend seeing over here, or this is what I've always done, but what do you have the capacity to do? What do you want to do? And bring in all of those in. What are your needs? I used to see 6, 7 people a day, and I had no clue how burned out I was. I remember when one of the first times I met Amber,
Yes. Oh
she
my
said to me,
goodness.
she goes, "How many people would you like to see a day?" And I said, "Well, I think usually around 5 or 6." And she stopped me and she goes, "How many people would you like to see a day? Not how many to hit your income goals and what you've been doing." It, it actually took me a little bit to answer that. I didn't know what to
Yes.
say. Yeah. So I think it's just such an important piece of it, and it truly is the foundation for everything else. So we do spend a good bit of time on that. And then we're moving, it's really the template for your why now, is what it is. So this is how we're setting it up.
Okay.
And the most beautiful thing about it is it's both personal and business, not one or the other. And we do spend more time on the personal because that's emotional to us. That's where we're really tied, and if we can start to
Mm,
understand the personal, the business is a piece of cake. And, so we have to kinda look at a number as a
okay.
number, and this is what it costs to do this or do that, and then we're starting to build the YNAB. So if we're working one-on-one together, we're usually meeting every other week. You have support in between. There's lots of different options around that, and I generally say, I mean, it does depend on the person. Every person, it's gonna really depend on the situation, but it's generally around 6 months to be able to get it all set up. But we also are getting ready to launch a program specifically. It's a group cohort for therapists with ADHD, and that's gonna look a little bit different. So it is gonna be 6 months, but it's specifically, we're having a lot of body doubling, different support. Let's do it together. Let's implement it versus, "Hey, we're gonna do this together, but you need to do stuff on your own," because we know that that's just not happening. Yes, you're actually the first person to know
And
about it.
this is coming
So
up soon.
yes,
Oh,
I know,
exclusive.
I
Oh,
know,
I don't know if I've
I
ever
know.
had an exclusive. I
Yeah, so
love
it's gonna be
it.
really exciting,
Wow.
and it's the actually, Amber, when was the last time you did a live round of Profit for Keeps?
It was
Okay,
2024, I think. Maybe
okay,
25, maybe
okay,
2025. I can't remember. But yeah, it's been a while because I've definitely, this is going to be the first time, and we've been getting a
yes.
lot of requests. So it'll be good because I've been healing from a surgery. So I haven't been doing them, but we're really excited about it. Maren said, even though I'm not diagnosed ADHD, I've been told that I definitely could be a
We've got
contender.
ADHD
So,
tendencies.
um, I I
Okay.
think that I created a program for people for
Yeah,
ADHD without knowing it.
I had one of my clients come in, and I still laugh about this, and she said, "I'm allergic to spreadsheets. I cannot do spreadsheets," and she just fought me on it, and I said, "Okay, I get it. Just look at it." And she didn't even wanna fill it out before, and so we went to the first quote. She goes, "I didn't get anything filled out." I said, "That's okay." And we looked at it, and within about 2 seconds, I saw her take this breath, I have never seen anybody take a breath like this before." And she goes, "Oh, this isn't that bad. I think I can do this." And it wasn't visually overwhelming for her. And it was the first time she had ever done anything like that. She
Good.
had tried this and tried that. And so I always say that this was built for therapists and it was built for business owners with ADHD without knowing it. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. This sounds like amazing work that the 2 of you are doing, and I love it that there's, like, this
The
dedication to support, like, the therapist community, of course, because, we're in it. We see the things, we see the Facebook posts and all those things, and I
I
sometimes I
know.
just wanna
I
give
know.
everybody a hug.
Yes.
Because I know it, I get it. I'm, like, I live it a lot of it, right? People sometimes will come on the show, they're, like, all super excited to see me, like, they come into my coaching sessions and they're, like, treating me like I'm a celebrity. I was like, "No, don't do that, because
I do a
I'm
lot
just
of
like you."
local, my local therapist community is just great. And I was at an event a couple months ago and somebody comes up to me and she goes, "I don't know if you recognize me or not, but we had connected over Facebook." It gave me the biggest laugh. And I said, I actually did, when she said her name, I recognized who she was and said, "I'm just a normal person."
Like, I it took years for me to
Yeah, I don't
stop
want to
putting
be
other
on
people
one.
on pedestals. Please don't put me on one.
That's right.
I don't wanna be on one.
Come
I am
laugh
just
with
so
me.
perfectly imperfect, it is
Be
funny.
yourself.
Right. Like, they sit in front of me, I was just like, "Look, I was working on that last week." You know? Yes, I'm in the trenches with y'all. I am not like, I have not figured it all out, you know? And I think these systems that we need to make it make sense are necessary. They really are. And so I'm grateful for the 2 of you for coming in and sharing about your system, Profit for Keeps. And it's just, you know, I might try it out because
Yeah, come on. We
I
have a
probably
lot of
need more
fun.
help.
We like to laugh a lot.
You know?
We do. And my favorite honestly, some of my favorite clients have been in the therapy industry because like Maren was saying, it really was set up for a coaching business and a therapist business is very similar. And what I was able to like, for example, I had a client in New York who was a psychologist and she had over $80,000 in debt. And the reason she reached out to me is because payroll was going to hit and she didn't have enough money there. And it was just so frustrating for her because she says, I am working she had 30 clients a
Oh,
week, 30, sometimes 33. And I said,
At 50 minutes
I hear these
a
all the
session?
time, and people will say, "Well, I wanna do
33.
that." And I always say, "Do you really wanna do that, or is that the only way that you know how to work? Because you've never done it differently?"
Ye
Well, and because insurance
yes.
really has caused that to happen. I mean, and she was private pay for most of it, but her rent in New York was $9,000 a month, So it's right away you're having to really bust it. And it was just so exciting because her profit for joy was a house in Santa Fe. She now lives in Santa Fe. She has 6 clients a week. She has people that work with her that love the culture she's created. It's really beautiful. So it's possible, and this is something that we can actually do. There's many things we can't control in life, but this is one thing that you can.
And I remember seeing that gap,
Yes.
and
Yes,
that
I love
was the thing that did it for me. I knew I was on the roller coaster ride. And when I met Amber, I said, "No, I know, I've done YNAB, I've done Profit First, I don't need this." But I decided to do it before I went through the coaching certification because I wanted to experience first. And at that point, I had already decided that I had already started my
Mhm.
coaching business. And then it was so clear what I needed to do for that income gap versus being in the unknown all the time of, I don't know what it is. I just know I need to make more. I just know I need to make more. And I saw exactly what that gap was. Oh, yeah.
Yes, this is powerful stuff. So, before we close, a question for you both. What is the one thing a private pay therapist should do this week to get their money situation in better shape?
Yeah. Um,
Go
I
ahead,
think it's
Maren.
just starting, truly. Just taking one step to say, I can do this. And I know so many of us feel so much shame around money because we've had so many experiences. I definitely have where somebody will say, "Well, I can't believe you did that." So it's just really taking one step to do it and just starting somewhere and knowing the people that can help you get there.
I love that. Love that answer. Amber, do you have a different
Well,
answer?
I would say that, if there's something that you know in the back of your mind that you've been procrastinating on, that you just know if I did this, it would be off my plate, might be billing, it might be getting caught up on that. I would recommend to actually just instead of just having that on your to-do list, set aside an hour, but do it in a really cozy environment. Set it up where it's really a ritual for you. And if you already have that figured out, then I would say run your revenue goal, reverse engineer your revenue goal, because it may be a rip off the band aid moment for you. And so I always recommend do it at a time when you can really do some self regulating practices, maybe taking a bath after or going for a walk, because it will be higher, most likely, than you're expecting. But then it's the most beautiful gift of financial self-care that you can give yourself, because when you know that number, when you even have an idea of what that number is going to be by putting in just an estimation, it will start to have your brain function differently. There's this diffuse form of thinking and solution orientation that will just start to bring in ideas. So that's always a thing that I recommend that you do, because it's easy and it's clear and it will allow you to start thinking in a different way.
Love it. I had a calculator created for the private pay folks on my website, but I know that you have one too. So I want to go check out your calculator and see if your numbers match up with my numbers. Where can we find your calculator and where can we find your practices and all your
The
things?
calculator you can find at amberdugger.com/calculator. We'll give you that link. And then I'm at amberdugger.com. I'm also on Instagram at Profit with Amber, and also on YouTube as Amber Duggar. And there's lots of videos on profit for keeps and money mindset and things
Yeah.
like that on there as well.
And my website is
Wonderful.
balanceandbeyondcoaching.com, and my Facebook group is Profit for Keeps for Therapists. You can definitely find me. I'm in DJ's group as well. So if you if you search Maren, you can find me. And my
Yay.
Instagram is Money Coach Maren as well.
Yeah.
And it should be next week. We actually have our new program that'll be launching. And right now I think the final touches are coming because I sent everything to him yesterday. And I am so ready for it. I can't wait to see it. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Listen, y'all come back anytime. If there's any changes, any new promotions, any new systems, we want to know about it. This has been a great conversation. I can't wait to get the episode out to the folks. Amber, Maren, thank you so much. I truly
Yes. Thanks
appreciate
for
it.
having
And
us. I always
thank you
love
for
coming.
being here
One of
tonight.
my favorite places.
Thank you
One of
so
my
much for
favorite ones to
having
come.
us. Yeah.
You're welcome. Oh, great. And please send me the link to your microphone because y'all, it is green and it is glowing. And I feel like I have just like won the lottery. So I will be looking for that link. Y'all come back next time. I have been DJ Burr, and this has been the Private Pay Practitioners Premium Podcast. Y'all have a good night. Still stuck on your niche? Not sure if your website is working for you or your potential clients? The new Niche Positioning Report is available to help you get clarity. You tell me your niche, state, rates, and goals. I send you a personalized report with your ideal client profile, messaging angles, pricing recommendations, and potential referral sources. Add the mini website audit for $37, and I'll tell you what's working on your site and what to fix first. Reports start at $67. Find out more at privatepaypractitioners.com.